Hello. Hi, Ellen. Welcome to the program today. Uh, I'm usually very bad at this opening stuff, but who do we have with us today? If you want to raise up your hand or show your existence or something like that. Last time we had a live stream, we only had audio on one ear for quite some time, and I stressed a lot to cope with that scenario. And I remember people saying that if it's okay, we can have audio on one ear, but that I could never have had that happening throughout the live stream. So do tell me if something is not okay. I have gone through the system now several times looking for stuff, but I think it should work. Welcome, Ellen, and thank you for being the first commenter. You're in Sandnes. Well, that's a nice place to be. At least the western part of this country, which is, I prefer. I miss the snow though, but I know that the eastern part hasn't gotten any snow either way, so there's that. Hello, Eddie. Thank you for joining in. I'm glad that you got to drop on by. Same to you, PB Dot. We have to talk about why you're called PB Dot at some point. I forget to ask you when I talk to you, but I'm glad that you're here. Loud and clear. Okay, that's good. And welcome to, and I'm sorry, I know that you left a comment, so I tried reading your name quickly, but it's very difficult. Dominika Kalkovska. Sorry, that is going to continue, but thank you for being here from Netherlands. Welcome to you also from Richard from South Dakota. Audio is fine. Great. I wouldn't call Sandnes a nice place. Stavanger was nice though. Well, I live in Bergen now, so the nice thing I can say is that it's the right part of the country or something like that. I don't really care. I like Stavanger too, I must say. Thank you so much for joining today. I thought it would be nice as each year to talk about the year that has gone. It's nice looking through what has happened in books and everything, and this year maybe especially since the moving stuff and all of that. So I thought I'd go through some of the things I wanted to talk about that happened in 2025 and then a Q&A. I have wanted to make a Q&A, but it's difficult to make a Q&A without that many cues. So I thought it would be nice to combine those two. So, yeah. Ellen asks, or Lunash Books ask, how was the move? Well, the moving part was quick and easy, but there is a lot of stuff happening with the house we live in now that I wasn't prepared for. So Bergen is probably one of the most rainy places in this country, and our roof is leaking several places. And it's surprisingly difficult to get repairs on roof. Like the insurance company seems to think that we should have prepared ourselves for a leaky roof since the house is old. The roof isn't that old, but the house is old, and thus we should have prepared ourselves, apparently. And our days goes talking with the insurance company back and forth and arguing. So that's not that nice, but I'm glad I'm in Bergen. I'm closer to my family, and let's hope that the roof will probably be fine at some point, but still a hassle, I would call it. And I'm not all that good with hassle, especially not the insurance company stuff things. Not my cup of tea. Dominika says it's a Polish name and it's notoriously hard with Polish names. Yeah, I have that issue with one of your authors, which I can't remember the name of. But we had a literature quiz at my work some months ago where that name appeared, and I have a Polish colleague that nailed the name, and then I felt ashamed because I missed the name so much. But people understood what I said. Luckily. Luna or Elin is good. Yeah. Are you back to Lunacha Books, or is this a different account? Or is it the handle that's the same but the channel name is different? I can't keep track. PB says, love the sound of Polish, but it's challenging to puzzle out the pronunciations. And Ellen says, at least you know how to pronounce my name correctly. Yeah, I'm working on it. Olga Tokarczuk, yes. Yeah, don't judge me on my pronunciation. But thank you for being here. Eddie says, did you discover any new favorite authors in 2025? Well, I'm going to get into it. I have one book that comes to mind, which is like a surprising author, but it's a more a favorite book because I have only read that book, and it's this one, Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami, which I absolutely love this book, but I haven't read anything other by this author, so that is what I'm going to do at some point. But I think this is the closest I'll come to a new favorite author, because it's the book I like the most. Other than that one, you have Stefan Zweig and his book that I can't remember the name of, which is like a theme of this live stream, but The World of Yesterday it's called. I bought another one of his books hoping that it would be as great as The World of Yesterday was. So here's to hoping. But, well, it's I would say it's still Neil Gaiman, Fredrik Backman, and Haruki Murakami that is of my top 3, but it's also the 3 authors I've read the most from. So I'm looking forward to finding another author that I just start buying books from. Also have Ben Aronovich, which I've read 5 of his books now, but yeah, it's in a series. It doesn't feel like the same thing. It feels more like I have a favorite book series instead of author. But I'm guessing that he has written other stuff too, so at some point I'll probably read that if I enjoy the rest of the Rivers of London series. But I am a person that likes to finish series, or do things in a particular order. I don't and I often envy people, but I don't envy the people that have no system in their lives. That just stresses me out a lot, and will forever do so. I guess that's where we are. I'm sorry if I cough in this live stream, because I have coughed quite a lot lately, and that will also probably continue. Luna says, or Elin says, sorry, it's the handle, channel name is still Cottage Goth Library. Okay, yep. then we are clear. How did you discover Kawakami? I guess that would be Instagram in this case. A lot of people talked about it, and I was recommended it on my channel a couple of times. I had no idea what it would be about, so I was really surprised discovering that it was like a, is it called age gap romantasy or age gap romance? Or I feel like the romance is the wrong word. It felt more profound. It felt like I didn't read a love story, but love was sort of the central theme. I was really surprised, and I recently read it, so I haven't talked about it on my channel yet. I actually read, I think, 6 books so far in December, so we are rolling at the moment, and I am enjoying that a lot. Have you read En reisende katts beretninger by Hiro Arikawama? Sorry. No, not yet, but also that one I've seen on Instagram a lot. We'll check out, I think. I do believe that I'm beginning to become like one of those, and this is something I've said several times on my channel, beginning to become like a Japanese fanboy, or like interested in that culture through the books I've read. Even though I've read some bad Japanese books as well, I'm still fascinated by the country, as others I know. Uh, Eddie says, I found a bunch of Rivers of London books in the thrift store and ignored them if I haven't heard you mention the series so many times, so I grabbed them all. Well, I like that strategy. I I wish that I would stumble upon the rest of the series in the store at some point. I think the Rivers of London books, I've bought them all brand new because I've never found them thrifted anywhere, and that is sad for a person that likes buying mostly secondhand. Yeah, I have to. I've not been to any of the flea markets in ages. Not. I don't think I've visited a single flea market this year, which is crazy thinking about how many of them I visited last year and the years prior. But I hope that will change soon. It will not change soon. It will happen maybe in March or April when the flea market season begins. I don't know how that is in the US or in Netherlands. Do you have like in Norway it's always in March, April, and then in September, October we have flea market season. Is it the same seasonal stuff other places, or is it just like in fixed periods of times throughout the year? It's often schools. Here we have them. Very few private flea markets, if that's a thing. Probably is a thing. Thrift stores are all year, but yard sales and flea markets are only warm weather. Yeah, I think yard sales is the thing I'm thinking about. We don't have yard sales, but I've seen the concept of yard sales in in movies, I would say. PB Dot says you're a weeb, which is a word that I will have to Google after this live stream, as usual with your comments, PB. No flea markets, yeah. I actually saw through the footage from the flea market we visited together, Ellen, probably 2 or 3 years now. It's been a long time, but yeah, I do miss my flea markets, but they also stress me out. That's why I do prefer for my psyche to go to the what's it called, just the shops instead of flea markets, because it's less people and less people running in to try to get bargain electronics so they can resell later that evening. I guess that is where I land, but I will discover more. I also have gotten requests of making more videos from Bergen now that I've moved, so I will have to make videos from Bergen. Maybe that will be flea market influenced. Who knows? But that might be fun. Last time Ellen was at the flea market was with me. Well, then it's about time, I guess. Dominica says we have flea market season April to September in Netherlands. Delft has one every Saturday. Rest of the year is too rainy. I like the concept of every Saturday. That will help plan them. Then you don't have to stress with doing one at the weekend that it's arranged. The problem with the flea markets is that they're often Saturday, Sunday, and then it's no point going there on Sundays, or at least that has been the case. Usually you have to be there on Saturdays to find books that are worth reading, or books that are different than the books that you find in every single one of those flea markets later. So I guess that is the stressful thing. You have to queue up and run for the books, and usually you're quite alone there, but still there is competition at the door. And yeah, I do miss them. Wasn't prepared to talk this much about flea markets, but there is probably something inside me that deeply misses them. At least I miss buying a lot of books and browse through them later. I guess one of the big advantages of having read a lot of books is that I have more books that I could buy or could find interesting. This goes both ways, but maybe I have a different niche than other people going to look for books. which maybe I could find a special book that not everyone is interested in, or maybe I'm just dreaming. Will you do top 10 top books of 2025? Absolutely. And to Ellen's frustration, that will probably happen before the year ends, because I really want to talk about my top 10 books this year. As with every year, I am looking forward to that video. It's fun to talk about books you like rather than books you don't like. That will be a highlight. And as with every year, I'm surprised by the books that I found enjoyable. And it is, some people, they have complete control over which books they are going to like and which books they're going to dislike, or at least that is what they're saying online. But I have no clue which books I'm going to love and hate. I have a little bit of clue with some authors, but I haven't read any Fredrik Backman books this year, unless I read Anxious People this year and not last year. Who remembers stuff like that, or who remembers at all? But that will come, and before the year ends. Absolutely. And in those, the comments you make on my videos, I remember. And I also agree a little bit. I should wait to the new year, but when the new year comes, I have so many other videos I would like to make. And it feels like making a video about the books I read this year by the end of this year sort of feels like I'm closing off this year in some way. Also, I take the last 2 weeks of last year with me when talking about the books that I love this year, so they always will be included. But stuff will happen, and often books you read on vacation, so when Christmas comes and you have hopefully like a more calm environment, those books will also be kind of better because you had time to reflect on them, or Recently noticed that you've passed 3,000 subscribers, Øystein. Well done. Thank you. Yeah, that happens. I still feel like it's fun to make videos. So at some point, I don't know how, if I have done this for 4 years or something like that. It's still fun to make videos. It goes up and down, the motivation and enjoyment, but I still enjoy it quite a lot. So it will keep that way. Our boys growing up, yeah. I feel like my channel is growing slowly but steadily, but I feel like my journey with books is growing more than my channel. And that is also kind of the point, I guess, with this channel. So I'll take it. I have some things I thought I'd speak a little bit about. So thank you all for keeping the chat going. If you have book recommendations in this chat, please also leave them. That is fun. I thought the first thing I'd speak a little bit about is I think this is the first year where I have had like a normal reading year in many ways. I've sort of I've read the books that I have wanted to read. I have stopped reading the books I didn't want to read, and I've read less bad books. I haven't yet checked my rating on Goodreads or Storygraph or anything like that, but it feels very much like I've made more right decisions when it comes to books. Sadly, I don't think I've read more 5-star books this year than other years, which is something I hope will come. But the average of the books I've read have been better. And I do think that just learning to let go have left me reading less bad books, which is great. And so now the only thing I have to do is sort of lift the roof, or whatever you call it. I have to read more 5-star books. And, with the things that I've said earlier in this live stream, I guess that will be difficult. But it's a challenge worth accepting. So still, I'm going to try. It is fun to DNF books, I've found. it's one of the great joys of this year. DNFing books without any regrets, without any doubt. And so far I haven't yet regretted DNFing a book, and I doubt that will ever happen. Um, and if that happens, I could always read that book again, if you know what I mean. If some of you have DNF'd a book that you regretted and then read again and loved, please leave a comment, because that would be fascinating. I can't see that happening. Maybe I'm too stubborn, thinking that I will. Well, I've given up on you and now you're dead to me, sort of. Alien says, still haven't reached 1K, but that's fine. I celebrated 15 years of BookTube in July. I think 15 years on BookTube, well, that's probably more impressive than having 1K subscribers. That shows a little bit of a stamina. I have no idea if I will be here in 10 years' time, so I would say that that's more of an achievement. That shows you will. Literally typing a question of DNF. Yeah, it's a fun topic. Dominica says, I'm sad that I've run out of Fredrik Backman's books. Now it's a waiting game. I guess that means that you all also read My Friends that came this year, which I thought about reading it, but then I stopped thinking about it, and now it has been published in Norwegian, so that's probably a good thing that I can then read it in Norwegian instead of English. Feels like if I should read Fredrik Backman in English, that feels wrong. Reading a Swedish author in Norwegian also feels a little bit wrong, but less wrong than reading Fredrik Backman in English, since our languages is so close to each other. But I'm sort of looking forward to the waiting on the Fredrik Backman books, or waiting on the books of any author, because I haven't read the whole catalog of any authors, I think, unless they've only written a book or two. So that is some achievement as well that I'm looking forward to do. Going to ask if you learned to be kinder to yourself about that. Well, yeah, I have made a huge effort in the DNF game in 2025, and you can't see it because it's out of frame, but I sort of have one shelf that is unread books now, and the rest is read, and my brain sort of goes two ways. The one way is like I'm thankful that I have a lot of books that I haven't read and a lot of books that I want to get to, at the same time that I'm a bit looking forward to having less books. So I think it's a part of the systematic part of my brain that wants to limit myself, but at the same time there will come periods where I just want to buy a lot of books. So I do have to be better at unhauling and not finishing books I know doesn't feel right. Also, this year has all been about trying to rid myself of some of the books. So next year, I'm fearing that I'll start January 1st with buying a lot of books and then regretting them afterwards. So we'll see how this goes, but I know my brain is not trustworthy, is probably the right name for it. I can't trust my brain with anything. So we'll see what happens in January. Maybe it will be yet a year with see me finish my TBR, see me cleaning out my shelves and having no books left. Or I just make book haul videos throughout the year. I remember my first year on BookTube, I felt like I was making book haul videos all of the time, and I was sort of fed up with it. But now I feel like I talk about getting rid of books the same amount, and it's also annoying. What do you know? Repetition is kind of boring to the brain, or not to the brain, to me personally. I'm going to leave my brain out of this, maybe. PB says, I've DNF'd Lord of the Rings first time. Ooh, that is kind of surprising. I do want to read Lord of the Rings at some point, but that comment isn't encouraging, I should say. Ellen says, can't remember if you like historical fiction. Well, I do. I like historical fiction, but I think that relationship with me and historical fiction is more complicated now. I think I enjoyed it more before. But who knows why? Maybe I've just read the wrong kind of historical fiction. But I do like the modern historical fiction set in times not that long ago. I'm not that fond of medieval stuff or like 1700s stuff. More like 1960s stuff like that. Eddie says same with Fredrik Backman. This is something I've thought about too much. I have Fredrik Backman's follow-up to Beartown, the book number 2. I read the book number 1, absolutely loved it. Was my favorite book now, probably 3 years ago. And after that, I sort of waited to find book number 2 at the flea market or thrift store or anything like that, but that has really not happened. I have them all in hardbacks. Every single Backman book I've found I found thrifted. But now my mind, I have to buy the book at some point, and that feels wrong to me without me. I know it's going to be worth it, but then I have to probably buy the book number 3 new as well. And it feels like losing. And this is, I think, since it's gone this far, I've already lost. But yeah, should have bought it a long time ago and read it. Could still read it in Christmas. It felt like a Christmas book the first time I read it. Depressing Christmas read, but it was a great Christmas read. So Backman, maybe I'm too afraid of not having any of his books left as well. So maybe my mind is helping me in this instance. If I can choose between a translation into Norwegian or English, I'd go with Norwegian. The Norwegian translations tend to be better, at least nowadays. Yeah, that might be. I don't think that's not true. I read my Japanese books translated into English. I have no idea how they were originally, but I have enjoyed a lot of them. So yeah. Tolkien is wordy. That's something I've heard earlier. And PB was 10. Was too young. Is that it seems. And it's my lamp is in the way, but Ellen says then I would like to recommend Ungen by Einar Basso. Yeah, that is a recommendation I've gotten before actually. I'll write it down so I'll remember it. There's a lot of things in the live stream that goes out of my head quite quickly. Dominica says, I DNF'd some books in audio form, but later gave them a try in paperback and realized I was wrong to DNF in the first place. For example, the first 5th season, Jemison. Yes. This I thought about the other day, that there are probably some books I've DNF'd because I listened to them on audiobook, and then if I'd read them with my own inner voice, it would maybe have helped. So that's a good point. There are a lot of good narrators out there, but maybe it's not the right time for their voices, I guess, or something like that. Yeah, I think that sort of sums up my hanging thoughts. I'll say something about the videos this year. I never know what videos I'm going to make throughout the year, but and the videos that do well on my channel are always surprising. I never anticipate them. My most popular video this year was about the Nobel Prize, where I just summed up the books that I read from this award, and I had no idea that that was going to be my most popular video this year, because I do not feel like the person that is supposed to talk about Nobel Prize books. It's not the thing I'm focused on. It's not the thing I do read the most from. But that video did very, very well. And yeah, still, this algorithm thing is a mystery to me. I don't feel like I'm doing a very, very thorough job in trying to understand it. I don't feel that is possible, but I do know that 20-year-olds in other channels, they know what to do in certain circumstances. Yet I get a lot of emails from creator helpers out there that says to me that they can help me get my show on the road, so to speak. But the Nobel Prize video did the best, and then followed by a video I made in January about Norway's most sold books in 2024. I was reminded of this video the other day when someone left a comment, and I will probably try to make another video of those in January sometime, because it's fun looking at what my country chooses to read for 1 year. It's usually not the same list that I would have chosen. So that's interesting. Also, during these times, I'm often reminded that, like, Norwegian, critics, Norwegian book critics, they mostly talk about Norwegian books, and I get how that happens. And I have made videos about this before, but it just feels weird having the whole world as your oyster, if that was the expression, and then you choose to read mostly Norwegian books. It sort of feels like the newspapers have to read the Norwegian books. I get that, and reading 100 Norwegian books and 10 other books, it forces you to find more good Norwegian books than other books. But still, this is, yeah. If you're interested in literature, might you not read other books than Norwegian books when you're off duty or something like that? Yeah. There has been, I think I'm going to skip the Lord of the Rings discussion. I don't know anything about Tolkien. Not more than you, at least. And that goes for probably all of you in the comments right now. It's not often I've already read Nobel Prize winners when they get the award, but I had with Jon Fosse and Han Kang. Yeah, same for me with Fosse. It was sort of depressing not having made more videos about Jon Fosse, especially when he won the Nobel Prize. That's the only time probably I've been bitter at my judgment, because I could have put Jon Fosse in all the titles for all the videos I had with him included, because that was quite a few. So I felt like I was missing out. I had one Jon Fosse video that skyrocketed in the sense of my channel when he won the award. Wasn't surprised when you talked about the top seller last year. I think it still has a wait list at my library, though not as long. Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the whole list as such, but Erika Fatland has been popular, so yeah. I tried getting a hold of that book, but I couldn't at the time that I made the video, but now it would be very possible. Eddie says, if I spoke a second language fluently enough to read books in that language, I'd still probably read in English, as it would be easier for me. Plus, I'd understand the idioms and whatnot better. Thank you for your stay here, Eddie. Have a fun rest of your day. I I think that is something I've thought about a lot this year, because I think, in my mind at least, I think I've read more Norwegian books. At least I've preferred reading more Norwegian books, since it's easier to get wrap my head around. It's not. It's, as you say, it's a little bit tougher to read in your second language. So in that sense, it's a really helps a little bit just to read something that you're very familiar with. For those Norwegians of you out there, it's still fascinating to me that I read bokmål better than nynorsk, since we have two written languages here. It's I write in nynorsk, but I read the bokmål a lot faster, which is annoying, so to speak. But it's just because I read more bokmål, since that's the major of the two languages. But still frustrating, I guess. I had a discussion on Jon Fosse with my Norwegian friend yesterday, and he was trying to convince me to find a different Norwegian author. He was very against him for some reason. Yeah, Jon Fosse isn't for everyone, and it's not for me either. I find him fascinating, and his books are very different from everything else I read. But the repetitiveness and the sort of the reading Jon Fosse, I feel stupid. I feel like I am missing out on something. So I just feel like I'm not smart enough when he starts speaking Latin, and you just miss out. It feels like. Also, it's not really very plot driven, which I'm a fan of, and doesn't feel very character driven either. It feels like a mush to me. But I still enjoy him a lot, and I enjoyed some of his books, but still, it's not. It's more to feel like I've read him, and I understand more when people talk about him. I think that's the deal. There has been a message removed from the chat, which I don't know has happened before, but that is interesting. I think I actually, this time when I made the video, I went into the control bar, and you can change settings and decide what comments that comes through and not. And for those of you that want to spread misinformation and stupid shit in this chat, we're very welcome to do so, because I encourage you to participate in the conversation. I don't know. I've never had anyone that tried making an argument in the comments, I guess. So I sort of missed that commotion. Ellen says, you read bokmål faster. Yes, and you're right. I think it makes sense, because the split of, I don't write that much generally. I write emails at my work, but it's not that many words, and when I read probably 95% bokmål in my life, that is what is going to be faster to read. I read a lot of books from Samlaget, my nynorsk source, but it's not enough apparently. You should read Kvitleik. Yeah, I read Kvitleik actually when it came out, and I did enjoy it. Yeah, it was very atmospheric. I did, and as you say, it was short, so it's not a lot of. I read it in one evening on my Kindle actually, which I'm sort of missing now and then. So I talked a little bit about my most popular videos this year. As I said, always surprising, but the least popular videos I make, they are never surprising, because my least viewed videos is often one of two videos. It's either it's a wrap-up video where I talk about the books that I've read the last month. They do on average very poorly, which is a big surprise to me, so like generally, but not now that I know that they are all going to be like not popular at all. But I think wrap-up videos is the videos I viewed the most when I was looking more on BookTube than I was making videos here. I liked people talking about like quickly the reads they had that month, and then looking at, oh, could this be something for me? As just a short walkthrough. Some a bit that is kind of strange to me, but at the same time, I I know now that people don't watch them on my channel at least. So if you have feedback, you can leave your feedback here. That is always welcome. And the second video that always performs badly is the videos I think will be great, and the videos I think will perform in some way. Or at least the videos I have enjoyed making. I know that they will probably not get any traction, that is very fascinating. But that is just how things are. Dominika says, I only read Polish authors in Polish and then rest in English, which is my second language. But that's mostly because I've been living abroad for many years. Yeah. Elin says, has given up understanding the algorithm. Yeah, it's no point. The algorithm is a beast that cannot be tamed. Or if you spend your time trying to understand the algorithm, I feel like life will pass by quickly when you try to. And thus, I don't think I've ever tried understanding it that much, but at least I will never try more. Yeah, I actually made a TBR in January. I've done this before, and it's really stupid, but I thought I'd go quickly through it because I was kind of curious myself to see which books I had read and hadn't read. So I start with this one. It's Mio Min Mio by Astrid Lindgren. I have read some Astrid Lindgren books by now, but this one was one that I spent some time thinking about. But now I've started reading this with my son, and he is not enjoying it that much, but I am. So this will happen before the year is over, and then I can say to myself that I have read it and held a promise to myself and my TBRs. So I'm positive about that. A second book that I told myself I would read is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Maybe autofocus will. It has problems. This is what the Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell looks like in Norwegian. For those of you that have watched my videos this year, you know that this was a huge surprise to me. And, well, I felt like finally when reading Gone with the Wind, I got rid of some stereotypes because I thought that would be a horrible read, but I did want to try to read it and then DNF it if I had to. But I guess my prejudice comes from mothers of... mothers of people that are my age did really enjoy the movie version of this book, and that made me think that this wouldn't be a thing for me. But now, after reading it, I finally feel like I understand the US a little bit more, because it has, well, it has the whole civil war stuff going, and that is something that I really haven't wrapped my head around before reading that book. Also, you have the thoughts of people in the book, instead of just, if you watch a movie, you can sort of see who is fighting who, but when you get the thought process of the people involved, it sticks more, I guess. So that will probably be in my top list of books this year, I hope. Ellen has given up on the understanding the algorithm. I had a video some days ago that got over 1,000 views. That blew my mind. Normally around 50. Yeah, it's lovely when that happens, but also it makes you wonder why. Mio Min Mio, one of my favorite childhood books. Yeah, I get why. It's a good book so far. I'm around halfway through. Hi, Stan. I'm from Donegal, Donegal in Ireland. I discovered your channel fairly recently, and I'm enjoying it. I like your combination of flippancy, drool, wit, and genuine feeling. Thank you. Thank you to you too. Lovely to have you around. Um, I never understand why people like my channel, but I'm very happy that you do. So, another series I finished this year was a book Elin likes. It's Evna, the last book in the Odin's Child trilogy. I think I don't know if I made a video about this, but I made a video where I talked about my issue with book series, because I read the two first books in this series too long ago. I forgot why things happened, what the language was all about, the words, what they meant, and all of that. And so this book could have gotten a lot better if I just knew what had happened before in more recent times. So that's always annoying. Also read Villain by Henrik Ibsen, a Norwegian classic. Will never read again. Have read it. Henrik Ibsen might be one of our most, like, at least top 5 most famous Norwegians and authors. So it feels only right that I should read him once at least. Then for a book that has sort of annoyed my girlfriend a bit, and that's Lolita by Nabokov. So the problem with her problem with this book hasn't been the content of this book, which probably would be for most people, but it's the thing that I've thought about reading this reading this book for such a long time. So each time I'm finished with a book and I need a new book for before I go to bed, I pick up a bunch of books, bring them with me to my bedroom, and I browse through one at a time and try to understand if this would fit my mood. And this book has probably gone with me to the bedroom, if that's allowed to say online, 20 times without me reading it, and it hadn't happened. So this year I just decided that I have to read it. Also tried reading Pnin, if that's the right pronunciation, from said author, without any luck. So I did read it and I was a bit disappointed, I guess, but still a fascinating book, and the language I found to be great. So I do not regret it. I don't think I could have DNF'd it, that would felt wrong, but yeah, you know. Elin loved The Raven Rings, but her new trilogy is better. Yeah, and yeah, I got rid of the first book in that trilogy before I read the last book in this trilogy, because I felt like it was too much of a pressure having like the first book in another trilogy lined up before I finished this first one. So that's why I got rid of it, I guess. But if time comes, I'll buy it again, which is something I'm thinking will happen. Then you have A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I recently read Great Expectations by that same author, and I was a bit disappointed. So when I'm going to read A Tale of Two Cities, I have no idea. But I will. When time comes, I will. Folkefiende by Henrik Ibsen. Yeah, I do have that one as well. Dominica says, I like your channel because I get recommendation of books that I've never heard of before. That's nice to hear. I do get that quite a lot, which, like, it's, people say that I recommend different books than other people, and I'm glad, but it's not intentional. So I don't know why that is, or I do get why that is. Maybe because I'm hanging a little bit I'm less on BookTube now than I was before, and that influences my book choices. Also, I have a bunch of books that I've just bought because I thought I either looked pretty or I thought at some point this will be great, or I just have heard about an author. I bought the book and thought, well, this is a name I know from somewhere. I'll give it a try. So my book buying habits might have influenced it a lot, which books I've ended up reading. Yeah, but thanks. Ellen says, I think Lolita is well written and the author really manages to give you the ick, which I think is some of the point. Yeah, absolutely. Reading, I think if you go on Goodreads to read reviews of that book, that is quite the journey. I think it goes from from people declaring him a genius to people, yeah, saying he should be shot for some reason. So there is a huge span of reviews, I should say. Then, as many of you know, I finally read Terry Pratchett's Mort, Discworld novel. I've concluded that I will continue to read The Story of Death instead of trying to read book number 1 or read any of the other good books. I really enjoyed this, so I know that if I read the second book in the Death series, probably I will like that as well. Also, it feels I will never continue, or I will never finish the whole of the Discworld series. That much is true. So thinking that I will read the 6 books or so that are in the Death series, it's easier to wrap my head around. Just see. Okay, 2 seconds. I think in my TBR this year, I considered reading a new fantasy series, and the choice was between these two. I ended up reading The Name of the Wind, which I absolutely really enjoyed. Absolutely really enjoyed. So I didn't read the 5th season. I know that it's mentioned before in the comments of this video, but that will also happen because it looks cool, that as well. And it has gotten a lot of praise on the internet. Don't judge me for the sticker that's still there. I've probably had issues trying to get it off at some point, and then it just stuck, which happens a lot, maybe. So I think I'll end this segment of this video because I said the first part would be like an update on the 2025, how things have gone, and then I'll do the questions that I have gotten in my chat. So the last thing I would say this, I sort of have my one agenda is the stuff I will do for you, but the other agenda is the stuff that I will do for myself. And the one thing that I think I promised myself this year and also promised myself last year was that I would do an interview with someone on this channel. That has not happened, but I do have one interview that I've discussed with my friends that I hope will happen at some point, but so far I've chickened out of it. It seems like both a hassle to do right, like technically, but the pressure of inviting someone to talk with me, it feels too much. Even though I am assuming that a lot of people would like to talk to other people about themselves or books or any of that, but I don't know how like the authors or people in the book world is in that regard. So still working on it. I think it would be fun. But I think it would be more for me. I think that video also could get like 50 views, and then it would be a lot of work. It's like it's like what I talked about earlier, that probably the videos I like making is the ones that does the worst, does the most poorly. Okay. Color of Magic is my least favorite of Pratchett books. Yeah, a lot of people say that. At least they they tell me to stay away from the books that aren't in like a either Guards, that series, or Death, or Small Gods is probably one of the books I've considered reading. But the first one doesn't seem to be great for some reason, which is probably understandable if he tries to frame it all in the first book and then there's no real action. Who knows? Dominica says, I love this world. I'm in the middle of the Wizards books now. Yeah, I think this will be a great series to read. I will just I have 4 of them now and I can't get rid of them, but I have to buy the next one in the series. Ellen says, just do the interview. If you want to start small, start with a fellow booktuber or something. Yeah, that's right. Probably. I've thought about that as well, but still too cowardly. We'll see. I promise to think about it, at least. Just have to fill up on water. You get thirsty talking to the camera for just 1 hour straight, I guess. This is my current Christmas cup. Also wearing my Christmas sweater today, of course, since this is the sort of the Christmas edition of my live stream. Ellen says, I've had book chats on my channel. It's fun. Yeah, I sort of assume that I will think it's fun as well, but just haven't done it yet. I'll let you know when I I get the courage to do so. Now I thought I'd start my question part of this video, but just continue to comment and I'll let my eyes wander from here to there and there. Often realize that I don't look in the camera that much when I do this video, these live streams. I mean, it's like maybe it's like when I talk to people in general. I don't look people in the eye that much either. So the first question comes from Busy B, and the first question is: have you traveled? If so, which countries? I have traveled some. This is all relative, you know. Some people don't travel at all. I did 6 months in Australia. I lived there in Adelaide for when I studied audiology, pediatric audiology. So I went there, and in that same period I went to Indonesia, to Bali, and to Hong Kong. So that was quite interesting. I had like what you say? I have not been into Asia more or that area at all, other than for that trip. So I do want to get back to that continent at some point. It feels like a whole different world in many regards, and I do get bored of my portion of the world a lot. Other than that, I've never been to the US. That is probably one of the places it feels like you have to visit at some point, but now it doesn't feel all that welcoming. It doesn't feel like a country you want to visit all that much for obvious reasons, but I hope that will change. I would love to go to Nashville, especially to visit guitar factories and watch bands. So that would be high on the list. Also went to Chile some years ago, which was interesting. I visited a friend there, and I've done a couple of interrails, but visited mostly the western part of Europe, well, I regret not going to the Eastern European countries the first time I did my interrail in like probably 2007 or something like that, because now it feels more unsafe. And well, I didn't actually. The first time I went on an interrail, I thought, well, haven't seen the Eiffel Tower and haven't been to Amsterdam, so I guess that was the main objective for that interrail. But I have been to Russia once with a class. That will also probably never happen again. But we went to St. Petersburg, which was in some parts of that city gorgeous, of course. Most of the things you see goldish is gold, so that is a huge, yeah, what should I say? It looks magnificent, and I watched the ballet and orchestra whilst I was there, and that was well, top of the line. Uh, Also, I go to Belgium each year for a festival. Actually went to Ireland last year for the first time, to Dublin, which was fun. Yeah, and the Nordic countries. I've never been to Iceland, but that will have to happen. Um, let's see. 11 Degrees says, "Is there any country whose books or authors you'd like to try?" I don't know if I don't know which country that should be or could be. It's I would like to think of myself as a person who likes to discover new books from authors from different places, but I had a couple of times I've asked people about book recommendations from Asian authors, but not from South Korea or Japan. But it's quite still, so it feels like a place, or feels like a lot of countries it's difficult to find book recommendations from, because I have tried a couple of times, actually. But saying that, I feel like a stereotypical white male, because I do find it hard to find new books from different countries. It's easier to find like European books, but yeah, it's just because it's more available, and you have to dig deeper to find new books. Thanks for the question. The American West is fantastic and safe. Wyoming, Montana, Dakota. I still hope you visit one day. It's not that I wouldn't felt safe. It's more, I guess, a silent protest or something like that. I look at the news and see the ICE raids. I don't think I would be afraid of getting into one of those or other stuff. But it's more like it doesn't feel right to visit your country while you have the president that you do. Unfortunately. But I hope things will change, because I really, really want to go to the US one day. Also, I have small children, so if I first visit, I would probably want to visit for like 3 or 4 weeks, if that was possible. So that is still something I hope will happen. Let's cross our fingers. Books from India. When I read books for the Booker Prize some years ago. Then I read a book from India, which I can't remember the name of. And then I have the Salman Rushdie thing, which with Midnight's Children, that I've never really got the hang of, but I'm willing to try again. Other than that, Indian book recommendations are welcome. Probably read an Indian book. It feels weird if I haven't. I find the best recommendations if I talk to a person from a country. Yeah. Can't say I've done that a lot, but I do when I ask about recommendations on my channel. I always go and seek those out, and some of the books I buy immediately, usually for my Kindle, but some of them I just don't feel is the right book for me. But that is how things are. Kiran Desai. I know that we have a lot of books in common, so I will write that down. So I'll remember it, hopefully. I think I'll go to the next question. Do you have other hobbies besides reading? Well, the reason why I started a YouTube channel was for my love of camera gear. As you can see there, I have camera and lenses. Also have more of them there. But I do like taking pictures. I take pictures of everything. I can go like in nature, try to take pictures there. The only thing I don't take pictures of is people close by, because that feels invasive. So I do like taking pictures. Thought I'd start a YouTube channel to be more of a filmic person, and I do enjoy that. So cameras. Also, I play drums and guitar. I have always played in sort of a marching band slash orchestra and then bands. So my big passion as a small child was the Beatles. Um, I fell in love with the Beatles when I was around 10 years old, which is a weird age to fall in love with Beatles, but that has remained my relationship all the way through. Also the reason why I go to Belgium each year to go to the music festival. So I do enjoy music. Probably I've been through a lot of hobbies. I've brewed beer for extensive periods of time. Earlier I had a bread diary, so I made bread each day and had to give it away because I made too much bread. But then I had a diary where I had recipes and lived life to the fullest. But it became, the bread became a problem, you might say. So I've been through a whole lot of hobbies. I do like to learn new stuff. The reading is probably a thing I always wanted to be doing. So I started reading for internet, and I do enjoy it. I feel like that's a really weird way of getting into reading, but I had to force myself, and now I can't get out. So in summary, too many hobbies. As yeah. Let's see. The next question from Busy Busy Bee is: do you also enjoy the design of your books, or do they not matter? So this is an interesting topic. I brought with me some examples. To me, it means a lot if the books are pretty or not, but it doesn't change anything. And that feels stupid to say, but I do get enjoyment out of books being pretty, and I feel it's easier to DNF a book if it has a really ugly cover. That's as shallow as it gets, but it is what it is. I feel like books like this, Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd, this is just glaring and disturbing to watch. So this I don't like. I do like, since I like taking pictures, I often like book covers with pictures. So a great example of this is Stoner by John Williams. That is a really cool, simplistic cover art. But I can also like the more, what is called, graphic. Here you have the whale in the sky. This is Animal Life by Ava Olafsdottir. I think this is about a midwife, so I don't necessarily get why this has the cover it has, but I do find this to be a gorgeous cover. Then some of the covers I did enjoy earlier, sort of illustrated. The Penguin classics I did like, often because they had cool paintings, and then it felt kind of profound because you knew that being a Penguin classic, there's something special to it. Then I realized that a lot of books are Penguin classics, lost a bit of the charm. Haven't yet read Moby Dick, and one of the things that happened between me and the cover art of these books is that I'm now more disturbed by them, since the font size is so small. So now I don't like them anymore because of the font size. So that can change. Recently I read Billie Holiday's memoirs, and this is a Penguin modern classic, and I do like these a lot more. I actually read Animal Farm by George Orwell this month because it was always also in the modern classic series. And I thought to myself, I've read some modern classics now, enough that I can sort of lay them in a pile in one of my smaller shelves, like I've done with my skinny books here. So that will be great. It's disturbing to think about all the thoughts you have in the course of the day, I would say. um, I've enjoyed the books by Jhumpa Lahiri. I'll take a note. Yeah. Let's see here. Have you read much by Knausgård? I have read all the books in my Struggle series. At the beginning I didn't understand why, and after a while I was hooked. There is something about the language that gets to me in a way that I cannot describe. It is enough to get me to stay on for a long period of time, but I can't describe what it is. But to a Norwegian, it felt natural that I should read at least one Knausgård book. My favorite was number 5. Then a lot of the action going on there is in Bergen, where I live now, and also it's a lot more interesting. His life is more interesting than it was in the other books, I guess. This year I read his book Morning Star, which is the first book in his Morning Star series. I think the series is called Morning Star, but at least that book is called that. And it was fantastic. And it's weird to say. I thought that would be more in the same. I didn't know what to expect actually, but it was really fascinating. He describes people's problems in a more like a way that disturbs me a little bit. I feel like I have. He sees me in a way that other people don't see me, and I'm a little bit freaked out by it. His prose is a lot better to me than others. And I don't often talk about language, but I have to admit that the language is what keeps me in his universe. Because the story isn't all that interesting. It's more about the people and their thoughts. Which is, yeah. I would recommend the Morning Star series before my struggle, I think, if you're interested. Yeah, but that's what I've read. I have more books from him as well, but that will come with time. Elin does not approve of this message, I know, but we are all different. Munt Shelby says, I enjoyed all 6 of Knausgård's My Struggle. They were uneven, but so is someone's life, I suppose. Yeah, I feel that like that describes it. I don't remember my ratings, but I do remember that I absolutely did not love book number 2, but I really loved book number 5. I read the first My Struggle book. That was My Struggle, yeah. I have no strong feelings about My Struggle in a way, because I see how I could get how people don't enjoy it at all. I think you have to look away from his personality a bit when you read My Struggle, but you don't have to do that when reading Morning Star. That's about other people, and that might help a lot of people, maybe. But if you like the language in Morning Star, then you could read My Struggle if you tolerate reading about the person. I feel like in my own life I'm a very honest person, so I do think some people might have a problem with the honesty aspect, whereas I feel like I could have written a whole lot of the same stuff about me in my life without thinking about it. But we're all different in that regard as well. I had some examples left with the book covers. I feel every book is destroyed a little bit if it's translated to English, from English to Norwegian, and that goes for Kazuo Ishiguro. Never Let Me Go, I thought was a gorgeous. I really like this cover art. You don't always know why you like something, but this I found really, really nice. But this, I I don't understand. I have no clue how this becomes the way it becomes like this. But that is what happens when you translate an English book to Norwegian, and I feel like it's especially with those books. I don't know with Michel Houellebecq, but this is one of his Norwegian editions, and yeah, yeah, I I don't know. I, I this isn't really beautiful, I guess. Since this is this is Houellebecq, he likes to be controversial, and maybe this is just one part of his plan. I'll go and look up his French versions afterwards to see if they are prettier or cooler in any way. Then just one example with a book that's also just a picture, but yeah, this it's a very powerful picture. It's a modern classic, and well, yeah, I it feels impactful. Reading older non-fiction books also feels more right to have a picture like this on the cover. Um, let's see. For then, it's actually a question from you. Do you say Mountain Shelby? Is that the correct pronunciation of the handle? Mountain Shelby 7059 um, off of YouTube. Assuming you meet people who don't know you're on YouTube, do you sometimes not identify as a reader? The simple answer is actually no. I never identify as not a reader because I tend not to talk about reading unless I know other people are interested in reading. It doesn't feel natural to bring it up, but if people are interested in reading, well, then we have something to talk about. And I do just love it. Also, I often feel like I don't know what to say about some books here on YouTube, and then it's really a secure environment when people if you ask a person what do you think about this book that's not really engaged in reading, I feel like their answer is mostly I have no idea, I just enjoyed it, and that feels sort of safe and comfortable to me, that that it's well, they don't have to justify it, or it's just a feeling of enjoyment. That's truly something beautiful. I never talk about being on YouTube either. I feel like it's a bit. I feel that's more frowned upon than being a reader, so I don't put myself out there as a person that does YouTube. But if people ask me if I have a favorite book, well, then we can talk, and I will talk for ages. I think I remember you saying something like you felt like you read other books than other people were reading, but I do feel like are people that read books are more welcoming of that. But it's yeah, you might not have that much to talk about. But also, you mentioned I think you had degrees in literature. Which kind of literature is that? Would be interesting to know. Or also correct, Mountain Shelby. Good. Then I'm not completely off. Um, but it's one of the great pleasures of reading a lot of books when you first meet people that also read a lot of books in person. Then it's just very enjoyable to talk about the books that you've read and enjoyed, and they will have an understanding of uh, the amount of joy you got out of something, if that made sense. They understand the pleasure of reading books, and then you can relate, which is always great. Ellen says, my life is so much entangled with books. For me, it's such a huge part of who I am, more than some of the other parts of my identity. I get how that becomes the way it becomes. to me also, I spend a lot of time both on YouTube now and reading books. It's a huge. It's I spend so much time doing this that it feels very much like a big chunk of my life. But yeah, I'm glad it is that way. Dominica says, when people ask me what is my favorite book, I ask what is their favorite child. um, it's I think, and this might be a stereotype, but at least I am one of those that like making lists. I have done the done the wrong thing when meeting new people and ask them what is your favorite or what is your top 3 of anything, and people have not a clear idea of what their top 3 of anything is on the top of their head. But to me, it's I do like to categorize things. So when people ask me what my favorite book is, it's 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami, and there's no doubt in my mind. But I do very much understand what you're saying. It's a tough competition to be in, and I could never read 1Q84 again, not in the same state of mind, and still find it to be the best book in the world. Maybe it all came together when I read it the first time. Mountain Shelby says, old school British and American literature pre-internet, which means we read almost nothing across other cultures. Yeah. I sure do wish more Scandinavian novels were translated. I really, really enjoyed them. Yeah, that's cool. I wish that more of them were translated as well. At least they're the good ones. I have there are some authors and I can't remember which one of them, but there are some of them where I am a bit surprised why they're not translated into more languages or English. I often go on Goodreads before I make videos for my wrap-ups and check if the Scandinavian or Nordic novels that I read have been translated, and often they have been translated into Spanish and Italian and German and Latvian and so on and so forth, but not English, which strikes me as a little bit odd, but maybe it's a very practical reason why this is. Maybe it's about which countries that get in touch, or yeah, whatever. So let's see here. Let's go for I hope that answered your question, Martin Shelby, at least. I found it to be a really interesting one, and a surprise of a question, I should say. Next question is from Tracy9000. And then it's, what books surprised you, good or bad, this year? We can continue talking about Knausgård for a bit, because that is one of the biggest surprises. I was completely prepared to DNF it, because it's a big one. I don't know how many pages this is. Yeah, 700. And I just thought Morningstar would be really, really boring. But as you now understand, I really loved it, and it will probably end up on my top 3 this year. So that is already decided. Another book that is sort of relatable, and I've seen another booktuber talk about lately, an American booktuber. It's the History of Bestiality by Jens Bjørneboe. This is a Norwegian modern classic about the author talking about stuff that has happened, which gruesome stuff that has happened, and sort of trying to talk about it philosophical. Yeah, in a philosophic. I can't make that word into another thing. It's late Norwegian time, but at least this reading stuff like this reminds me of Knausgård, because they have some of the same formulations, and it was really an interesting read, even though grotesque at times. But I enjoyed it, and also it's a controversial book because it writes about bad stuff, But if you like, it's sort of one of those authors, I would say, if you like the language of Kinosko, you would also enjoy that one. So I was surprised that I enjoyed it at all, I should say. I was prepared for that one to also fail me. Then you have a book, I don't know if I had expectations for this, but it ended up being quite an enjoyable read, and that was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So this is a book about about the publishing industry and how things aren't working out that great. I think this is a very popular topic at this point, because I also read Agnes Ravatn's newest book, a Norwegian author, also about the publisher. So it feels like people like writing about publishers these days. But I was surprised of how exciting this was. I thought it was really, really suspenseful, and also it felt like you got an insight into how the publishing industry works or doesn't work, which is also kind of cool. So it surprised me, even though I didn't have that much expectations. It's one of those books that it's quite glaring, the whole thing. So when I saw this at the flea market, I just grabbed it. Not the flea market, sorry. I found it at like a little free library. It's easy to spot. Yeah, also talked about this a little bit earlier in the video, Strange Weather in Tokyo. This is one of my favorite reads this year. Since the woman is flying on the cover, I expected this to be quite like a magical realism kind of book, and didn't know what it was supposed to be about, because I bought it just because someone recommended it to me, which I shouldn't do generally, but I ended up loving this. It's about like a age gap romance thing, but doesn't feel like it. So that will be with me for the rest of the year. Let's see, I think I have the last book I want to talk about here. This was maybe this year's biggest disappointment to me. Helga Flatland has written one of my favorite Norwegian novels, and I have read one of her other ones before, but didn't enjoy it that much. Also didn't enjoy this that much. It was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't DNF it, so that means clear 3-star, I guess. I don't know. People rate things differently on BookTube. No, on Goodreads. So yeah. But that was sort of a disappointment. I hoped that I read one bad book from that author and the rest would be okay, but it seems like the first book she wrote was the best one, and then it's a bumpy road from here on out. Tracy also says, what advice would you give to other people who want to become a bookworm? I've talked about this a little bit on my channel earlier. I think it's quite easy. The answer is the simplest one. But I think some of you might be shocked over how I thought about books earlier, because I've read a lot of bad books. I tried reading a lot of classics earlier on in my literary career, and in that process I read a lot of books that wasn't really meant for me, but I read them because classics are supposed to be the best books, I thought. That is not how I view things anymore, but reading the right kind of books is my number one suggestion for people that want to read more books. Just find yourself a book, open it, and if it feels like it resonates with you from the first page, that is where I would start. If it feels like your eyes are just washing over the pages, it's understandable, the language feels natural to you, all those kinds of things, because I read a lot of books where this isn't the case. Sometimes I end up loving them, but oftentimes it's the books that hook you from the first page with the language, especially. That's the books that I end up enjoying the most. You can go and find like books about topics that you enjoy. You can go and find books about a hobby you have, or for me, I like memoirs from people that I want to learn more about. But in general, try reading one page, and if you don't feel a connection, just stop doing your read. Let's see here. Ellen says, have some stuff to do. I have to leave, but I'll check in to see if you're still going. Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure to have you with us. And another question from Tracy9000. Do you have a reading setup, good lighting, etc.? This question makes me regret not reading more books on my Kindle because the Kindle is beautifully backlit, and we humans don't always see that well in darkness. Also wear glasses, might have a more bad eyesight than others, but like having the right kind of lighting is crucial. Sometimes I forget this while I'm inside in winter. So now it's dark when you get home from work and you leave for work, it's dark, so you're dependent on having good lighting. And often I don't, but I have enough lighting, which is the second best thing. But having a backlit panel like on my Kindle is fantastic. And each time I read a book on my Kindle, I'm very pleased with how easy it is to do. So I should do that more, I know. But then I'll not get rid of my physical TBR, which has been this year's program. I do fly, or before I moved, I flew maybe once a week, like for work. And then I always had to, or I always sat by the window. So that was my, like, the only strategy I've had light-wise while on travel. But that has really been the only solution you might have in that instance. So I try having enough light, but I do not have good enough conditions for it at my home. Also don't have a reading nook in the same way I did earlier. Earlier I had a specific reading chair, which I made a video about, which did surprisingly well. And I have no idea why that video did well. Probably people Google reading chairs or reading nooks or something like that. It surprised me because it's a very, very regular chair. But anyway, I have to find myself a new setup for a reading destination in my new house, which I moved into in June. So still, there are things that are going to be needing attention in this place. Then it's a question from you, Dominika. Have your book buying habits changed now that you moved to Bergen? Did you find a new favorite bookstore or a little free library? Well, the funny thing is that before I moved to Bergen, I went to Bergen once a month at least for work, and in that in that space I always visited a bookstore because I often needed a new book. It's like, since I have small children, the most reading I do is when I'm traveling somewhere, if I'm at an airport or a ferry or at the hotel room at night. So I do most of my physical reading in those locations. When I'm home, things need to be done, and then I can listen to audiobooks, but a lot of my physical reads have to happen on my travels. So I have one big store here in Bergen that I've bought all my River Stuff London books at. I've bought one for each time I've traveled here, or at least one when I'm out of books on my travels. And they also have one. Well, this is a sore point. It's your question about the little free libraries, because they have the same book kiosks in Bergen as they do in Oslo. They just have a lot fewer than in Oslo. Also, they're smaller. So my favorite bookstall that I made a video about in May, I think, this year, it's quite a big shelf, and it had very continuously maintenance. So people came and they changed out the books for that shelf quite often, so you could find new books regularly, and also it was easy for me to dump my DNF books into that shelf and they could have a new life. But here in Bergen it rains a lot. It's the most beautiful city in Norway, but the weather is really, really bad, and they have I think there are 5 kiosks outside, and they aren't always weatherproof, so that's a bit of a shame. Also, they have a very low rotation on in the kiosks. So what I'm wondering, but I do feel would be a bad idea, was that I could become a sort of a guardian for one of the shelves, because I think you can become a guardian for one shelf, and then you are responsible for the shelf and how many books are in the shelf and how much of a rotation is there in the shelf. So maybe when my children are older, I can adopt one of those shelves and become a guardian, or whatever you call it in English. But my book buying habits haven't changed now. As I spoke a little bit about earlier in the stream, it's my mind is sort of on or off. Next year I might buy a lot of books, but who knows? Maybe I'm not going to buy books and just continue to read my TBR. I do enjoy having read more books in my shelves, having control of what is the content of my books. And one of the great pleasures this year is that I've gotten rid of books I've just bought because I felt like I knew the name of the author, or I found them for free, or stuff like that. It didn't always feel right requiring the books that I've required, but now it feels like I have more ownership to my own shelf. I hope this makes sense for some of you out there. This is stuff that I go around thinking about. One thing I can say is that there has been a lot of time brought, with the move. I spent a lot of time moving, and that is time consuming in all forms. So I hope that next year I'll read more books on evenings. So I've sort of, what can I say? In the evenings I go tidying up stuff and listen to audiobooks, but I do miss having more time to just sit down with a physical book and read. I read often for breakfast and in the evenings, and then I listen to audiobooks and then read while I'm traveling. So we'll see. We'll see if it changes, but next time I'm going to travel with my girlfriend to a foreign country, which I'm hoping will happen next year sometime, then I hope we'll read a lot. So it goes. Dominica says, thank you for the question, Dominica. I love Bergen. I've been there a few times, but rain is a problem indeed. I haven't seen any free libraries in the neighborhood where my friends lives. No, you have to look for them. There is one, there is 2 downtown in the city center here. They are, what can I say? They are not ideally placed, and they are lousy. But I will, maybe I'll try to contact someone to get things up to in shape. I actually have looked it up because I was a bit annoyed with the situation and jealous of Oslo that has a lot more of them and better ones. At least the one I used the most was pretty good, since I never needed to buy any books almost. I should also say, for those wondering, I was prepared for the rain because my family is from here and I'm from not that far away, but still, rain is it does something to you. So I'm looking forward to the next year, and things are getting lighter outside. Then we have some questions from PB Dot. I don't know if you're still with us in the chat. What is the worst book you've read? And the other way through. I couldn't find an answer to this question this year because I have not read that many bad books this year. So I think I'll just stay with the Helga Flatland book, just because I was disappointed. My life has been better after I've just stopped not DNFing books. No, started DNFing books, because it means that I'll read fewer bad books. If there's bad books I've read, it's probably a classic that I've forced myself to read, because those are the ones that I will probably try to push on through the whole way, so I at least can say that I've read them. So Great Expectations wasn't the greatest read for me. That's one of the disappointments. Yeah, and it will continue to be that way. I still don't feel silly when trying to just finish books, because some books I really want to have read, and that is, well, that will always be the case. There is a lot of books that I just want to have standing in my shelf and thinking, like Frankenstein, I despised, that I read some years ago, but I still like having read Frankenstein and knowing the story and being able to get some of the references. So we'll see. What is the best book you have DNF'd? Well, that's also a very difficult question. I took two with me that I recently DNF'd. It's Medea and all of her children. I thought this was too many names, too slow, and I knew that I wasn't going to finish it. But I don't doubt that it's a good book, and I do not doubt that I could find some enjoyment in it. But I felt like I understood where this was going, and I still don't feel like I'm missing anything. Other one is Rebecca. This one by, let me see, Daphne du Maurier. This is, what can I say, a book that I feel like so many people love that it feels wrong not to like it. But it's just something about the vibe that threw me off, and, well, I do not regret getting rid of this one as well. Also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is in the category of books that I don't mind not having in my shelf. Let's just put it that way. Even though I sometimes, because this is like a Norwegian's classic series books, I could just start to collect them all in like together with themselves, because I have read quite a few of the ones in this series. It's sort of the Norwegian Penguin modern classic look, but ugly. Maybe that could be a t-shirt if I ever start making t-shirts. Also, Dominica, why do you have friends in Bergen, if that's allowed to ask for? It's feels random to have friends in Norway. We are not the most friendly people, in a way. Some of us are, not including myself. PB says, still here, just lurking. Well, I'm grateful. And thank you for the questions, even though they're difficult to answer. Mountain Shelby, I drag myself through certain classics, but DNF contemporary novels when they don't hook me. Yeah. It sounds like we have the same strategy. I love Rebecca, but I understand not enjoying it. Have you seen the Hitchcock film version? No, but I am thinking about it. I do. That's one thing that I think if I didn't read books, I would probably watch 10 times the amount of movies that I do today. I watched a lot of movies earlier, but I've sort of switched it with my book reading, which is maybe natural, feels natural at least. Last question from you, PB Dot. Do you ever reread books? Why not? I have not reread a book since I reread. 2 seconds. There's a lot of times during these live streams where I almost switch to Norwegian, but I don't. Barely. I mentioned this earlier in the video, that I grew up listening to a lot of Beatles, and this one author called Lars Håbe Christensen, he wrote books that were called Beatles, and this was 3 books, quite chunky and made mostly for grown-ups. Uh, but I read this book because I listened to Beatles and loved them. And this is about four young boys growing up in Oslo in the 60s listening to Beatles, so I felt like I was really at home in this novel. So this, I think, because I can forget things myself, I have read this, I think, 4 or 5 times, but this is my only book that I've reread. Also read a lot of other Lars Saabye Christensen books, but not since I grew up. Which feels weird because it's not like it's books written for kids, but I was always an old kid, if that's the expression. I have some books that I'm considering rereading. Murakami's books I feel like I want to reread. Could probably get a lot out of rereading other books by authors I do enjoy. And I have to think about I have to think a little bit about it, but it's there are probably books that I have one book when I think about it now. This one I read my first year on BookTube, and I did like the vibe, but I think as a person at that time that hadn't read a lot of books, I felt like it was hard to get a grasp of the craziness in it. And so my mind couldn't really... I think this was a big thing for me the first 2 years on BookTube, that I anticipated too much when reading books, and then I got lost in the anticipation, thinking that I should remember stuff and not, and why did that happen? Now I just more go with the flow, and I think that would have helped me when reading this the first time. Since I now have read a Terry Pratchett book, and liked it very much, and I love Neil Gaiman's books, probably I should try to reread this at some point. So I think this is the closest I've come to a book I feel like I should reread, because I like the two authors, and now that I know the story as well, it feels more, well, maybe it's easier to get into. So, but generally, I feel like I don't want to reread because I feel like I already know. If I feel like I know a story, then why would I reread? If you get my drift, that is how it is being a like plot-driven reader mostly. Having said that, I did enjoy the Knausgård book this year as well, so I'm not a purely plot-driven reader. You must, although the plot twist is changed, the actress who's playing Mr. Denvers is the best. Yeah, I feel like I know Rebecca well after having talked about it a couple of times here on the internet. I've gotten a lot of spoilers already, but that hasn't had any impact on my impression of the book, or what I should say. Dominica says, because of university, my friend was a guest researcher at TU Delft when I was there. Okay, it makes sense. I feel kind of stupid, but it's not. There aren't that many Norwegians, but I guess since we're both in Europe, that we're not that a rare species either. But do come to Bergen. It's a beautiful place when it's sunny. I also enjoy it when it rains, but it's for especially interested people. PB Dot says, I'm not surprised you've read Beatles more than once. No, it's if you like the 60s and if you like the Beatles, and you wish that you were born in a different time, it's very much a lot. It's a lot of fun to read that book. So, will I reread the Beatles anytime soon? Actually, I have thought about it when I think about it now, because I lived in Oslo for 10 years, and when I read the Beatles, I had never visited Oslo. So now that I know the streets and the areas and the general vibe of the city, maybe it will make another bigger impact. Also, I'm more grown up, so I will view the books in a different light, as happens. Mountain Shelby says, not a big rereader either. No, I like discovering new stories, and for me the stories is what I'm here for, I guess. So that is how it is. So I think I've actually gone through all of the questions, and thank you to all of you that asked questions. Without you, this live stream would be a lot shorter, because that is how it usually is. So I'm very happy that you had questions. In general, I feel like 2025 was a fun year on YouTube. I had a big, like when I moved, I made a lot fewer videos, and when you make fewer videos, it is what happens every time that you get fewer ideas. So the less you make of content, the less content you have in your head. And that's really, really something that happens each time. I hope next year, since I had a break the year before in 2024 as well, I hope next year will be my first year again where I make videos each week for the whole year. I guess that is what I'm aiming for. I feel like I'm missing making content each week, but also having the pressure of having content each week. I am also yet again considering clipping my usual videos and from my wrap-ups and making them into shorts. I've done this before, and I would like to ask you what your opinion on it is, because last time I did this was probably 2 years ago, and I got a lot of... No, I didn't. I got some backlash. I get a few people that said that my videos were unsatisfactory, which is a fun way of putting it, because I made short clips of my book reviews for my wrap-up videos. But since my wrap-up videos performs poorly in general, I thought it would be a fun thing to do. I like the thing where I'm clipping my wrap-ups into 1 minute shorts, because it's fun to like technically do the editing. It's fun. Also, a lot of people don't watch my full content, they just watch shorts, and some of my shorts are doing very much more for my channel than my long form. So if you have an opinion on making short videos out of those, that would be great, because I get hung up on the few negative comments, as everyone does, and I sort of now regret that I listened to them, because it's well, it's easy work, and more people will probably see my videos. And as I told them, they don't have to watch my short videos if they don't want to. If they get me up in their feed, well, then you just have to scroll on through. I guess that is my point. If you have strong opinions, please share. I feel like you that hang on my live streams, you are probably more fond of my channel than the ones that comment that I shouldn't be making short videos of my wrap-up videos. So every kind of input is, what's it called, is welcome. Mountain Shelby says, I like videos about 10 to 15 minutes, but whatever the creator prefers, videos are a lot of work. Yeah, I also do prefer my videos to be that way. I think the reason why I'm talking about short videos is I feel like to me it could be more of a free content to make. Since I'm already making the content, it would be easy to chop it up, and maybe more people will discover my channel. Because in the short videos you can have the name of the authors and the books, and people will search for it and click on it. Whilst when it's on in a short video, now in a regular video, people might not discover it. But we'll see what happens. Elin is back. Did I miss something important? I've talked about rereading, I've talked about Bergen and Little Free Libraries, about Lars Saabye Christensen, and me considering chopping up my wrap-ups into shorts. Besides the wrap-ups, they'll still continue to be the way they are, because I like them. but I do want to see if I can make more content out of them, since I'm already doing the work, sort of. So that is it. I think I am going to wrap this up because I'm all out of water, and water is important in life. Ellen says I hardly ever watch shorts myself. I do watch shorts, but it's I feel more useless when I watch shorts than other stuff, because it's yeah, it's more brainwormy, or whatever the expression is. But I think I'm going to wrap it with my water shortage, and also I've said what I wanted to say, I think. Thank you for joining, all of you. If we don't speak, I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, have a nice year. Well, I will make a couple of videos before the year ends, but thank you so much for joining this. And yeah, we'll see each other in 2026, because this is definitely the last live stream this year, I guess. So thank you and goodbye.